Hi everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. This is Rachel. Welcome back to my web series Dating While Gray. This is episode 5, The Backsliding Preacherman. So here we are. I am at the point where I've dated quite a few men by now. I've had the policeman, the mailman who I refer to as player, the cowboy, the broke-ass brother, and now the backsliding preacher man. Now, this guy I met online. One of my friends suggested using one of the, the little online sites that were becoming popular during this time. And she had told me that she met a couple nice guys on there. Now, I was a little leery about it because I've always felt like, I want someone to meet me in person, see me face to face, because I'm not, breathtakingly beautiful, and I want them to like me for who I am, not for some picture that maybe I posed online and, had the right lighting and my head tilted the right way, and that light just caught me just right, that made me look the best that I could possibly look. So you feel a little insecure, and also that people doctor up their picture, so I was a little reluctant. And then I also thought about who would be online searching for a partner. So that's how I felt about these online dating sites, but I decided to go ahead and give it a try. So the picture of the guy that I ended up choosing, because I did send a message to several, but there was one that he talked about God and all of that, and that he put God first in his life and then his family, and I just thought his profile was interesting. So I sent him a message, and then a couple of days later I got a response which included his phone number. So the first day that I got the phone number, I was a little hesitant about calling him because, again, I didn't kind of like these online dating websites. But eventually I did give him a call. We talked on the phone and he seemed like a very nice guy. And I had told him, because this was an online little hookup, that I really wanted to talk on the phone and get to know him better before, we met face to face. And he did not seem to have a problem with it. So we talked quite a few weeks, probably like a month and a half, before I decided to meet him for like lunch or something. I didn't want to go out to dinner because I didn't want it to be a date that ended when it was dark. And, I didn't know him and I was trying to be safe. So I decided that I would go to lunch with him. Now, he had asked me, what type of food I liked, and I told him, Italian, but, in the middle of the day, that's kind of heavy. So we decided to go to the Cheesecake Factory because, I like their tuna sandwiches, which is so funny, but I like them. So we decided to meet at a Cheesecake Factory that is within a mall here in the city that I live in. And I picked that place because I figured it would be hundreds of people around. I could let him leave first, make sure, he's out the vicinity, so I could go to my car and, he wouldn't follow me or anything. I was really trying to be careful. So once the date was set up, I went back to kind of look at his picture, really see who I was meeting. And his picture was kind of fuzzy. So I really couldn't get a good look at him. I just knew he was a chocolate brother with a beard. And I really couldn't, distinguish his features. So before I had hung up, after, we had set our date, I had asked him, how would I know him? What would he have on? Blah, blah, blah. So he said he was about 6 foot tall. He told me what he was going to be wearing. And, as a woman, I didn't know what I was going to wear. I just told him when he asked me, I said I wasn't sure. And he just laughed and he said, you asked me what I was going to wear. And I told you, but you don't know. I said, well, that's a woman. I could pick one thing and at the last minute change my mind. So the day comes for me to go meet him. I'm really nervous because this is, this online shit, and I don't know how this stuff works. So he had told me that he was going to get there before me, so, I wouldn't have to look for him. So as I'm walking up to the Cheesecake Factory, I see a guy, and he's about 6 foot tall, and he's chocolate, but he is not attractive. So as I stood for a moment, and, I had a little dilemma there. I was looking at him and I said, oh my God, he really is not attractive. And I could have walked away and never met him, kind of stood him up, but I'm one of those type of people that I would not like to be stood up, you know, after talking on the phone to someone for like a month and a half. So I said, well, I'll go ahead and make the best of it, even though he is not attractive. So I walked up to him, and as I got closer, the scenery got worse and worse. He really was not attractive, but he was dressed really nice. He was really neat, and his outfit was well put together. He just was a well put together brother. His hair was, cut to precision. His beard was absolutely beautiful. I am a sister that likes a brother with mustache, beard, or something like that. So I finally get up to him and I said, well, this is it. So he actually was, even though I was very close to him, like still walking up to him, he actually was still looking off in the distance. So eventually I made it up to him, and I just stood in front of him, and he looked down, because again, I'm, not even 5 feet. I'm standing about 4'11", and I said, are you blah, 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 his name? And then he asked me, was I Rachel? And I said, yeah. So he bent down and gave me a hug, and he smelled really, really good. He just smelled like, it wasn't even like a cologne smell. It was more just fresh and clean. And I know that he had on some type of cologne, but it wasn't heavy. And I just said, oh my God, he smells so good. And his beard was really soft when he hugged me, it brushed. And then when he stood back up and he smiled, I said, oh, he has a pretty smile. And that changed his whole face. So I said, well, you know what? Maybe this is getting a little better. So we go into the Cheesecake Factory, have a little nice lunch, and we ended up talking for quite a few hours. So he asked me, because we had been there about 3 hours, and I said, you know what, maybe we should get up and move this, because you have the mall will have benches and stuff where you can just go sit in little outdoor kind of picnic areas. I said, well, maybe we should move this outside and not stay in this Cheesecake Factory for hours, seeing that we're just sitting here talking and we've been done eating for a while. So we went out, we sat in the patio of a little restaurant there, and we continued to talk. And eventually he asked me would I like to go to the movies, because he didn't want the date to end. And I said, yeah, we're at the mall, what could happen. So I went on to the mall, we went to the movies, and eventually we did end the date. What I thought was going to be like maybe a 2-hour date ended up being about 7 hours. So I go home and I kind of evaluate the situation. I was thinking, now I'm not really physically attracted to him, but after sitting talking to him for all those hours, he was a very, very sweet man. He was really into God. And, he, I found out, had like 4 children. And he said that he had recently gotten custody of them. And he was living in the city that I lived in, getting, I guess, settled. And then he was going to bring his kids down to live with him. He told me that he was a truck driver for Budweiser. And that he was living in an apartment. But he was looking for like a house, and then he would be bringing his children down. And so I asked him, I said, well, is the mother coming too? And he said no, basically the mother was out the picture. So I thought that was a little odd, but he seemed like a nice guy. So we continued to talk, and I noticed that he seemed not really shy, but he was very quiet. So it was hard to kind of figure him out. Um, like one minute he would be very shy, and then the next minute he would be a little aggressive. So what I very early realized is he was a lot different than the other guys that I had dated. They were more open. You knew what they were looking for. You know, it was fun, laughing, joking. But this guy was a very quiet, thinking, reflective. You know, like you would ask him a question, it was like he would sit there and think about it for a minute. After a while, sometimes that got on my nerves because you thinking, I just asked you, did you want to drink of water? And you got to think about it for 20 minutes. So he is going to be difficult to kind of get a handle on because I never really got, you know, an idea of who he was and what he wanted. So we go on and we date on and off periodically. He never tries to kiss, touch, any of that stuff. So at first it was a little weird. Then after a while, you know, because he talked about God so much, you know, I just thought, I said, well, he is a church boy. And so I, you know, put my whole shit up on the shelf and I was like, well, you know, with him, this is just going to be someone to go on dates with and go out to dinner and little things like that. So one time my kids were away, you know, with their dad for the weekend. And we were talking on the phone all during the day, you know, while I was running my errands. And, you know, he asked, your kids are gone this weekend? And I said, yeah. And he said, do you mind if I come over? And I said, well, you know, let me finish up my errands, get the things that I need to get done, you know, around my house. So, you know, the next week wouldn't be bad for me and my kids. And then, yes, so by the time I got finished running around and everything, it was later on in the evening, not real late, and he came over. Now, when he came, like we sat in my living room, and again, he was quiet, and, you know, you felt like the conversation was, you had to pull a conversation out of him. So you're sitting there, and you're like, okay, he's a little boring, you know, and then his story is going to be all over the place because he was all over the place. So because he was so quiet, you know, and the conversation was like kind of stagnant, I got up and I cut on some music. I like old school music, Gladys Knight, Aretha Franklin, Temptations, and Stylistics, and Blue Magic, and just the old songs. So I'm sitting, you know, near my stereo, like, you know what, he's not talking. I'm just going to sit here and mellow out and listen to some music. And whenever he wants to open his mouth, then I guess we'll talk. So, eventually, you know, I'm sitting like in a hard chair, but I go back over and sit on my couch. And then I guess Preacherman was like, well, it's time to make his move. So I'm sitting there, and then we started talking a little bit, and right in the middle of us talking, he leaned over and kissed me, just out the blue. Now, the reason why this was significant for him, because he was so, I don't know, like shy, or, you know, maybe, I don't even know. So I'm not even going to speculate on what it was, because like I said, he was confusing. So I was like, oh, that was nice. And before I go on, I'm going to tell you like exactly why I didn't think he was that attractive. He was kind of googly-eyed, and he has some soup coolers. And anyone that is black knows what I mean when I said he had some soup coolers. So between those googly eyes and those soup coolers, I was thinking to myself, thank God, you know, he has a pretty smile, and once he smiles, it changes his face, and he's actually not that bad. So, you know, we kiss, and he's trying to get kind of touchy-feely. And again, this is all out of character for him, because all up to now, until now, he's been like reserved, I guess. So, we start talking again, and eventually it's like he's there, but I'm saying, well, he's boring. Let me go in the kitchen and take out this meat that I'm going to be cooking for tomorrow. Let me go in here and throw this load in the washer. I forgot I had to do this. It was not like a date day because he was so hard to pull a conversation out of. So as I came back upstairs and I was thirsty, and because I went down to my basement and threw a load of clothes in, child. I was like, look, if the man is sitting in the living room, I got other things I could be doing. He ain't talking anyway. So when I came back in, I asked him, do you want something to drink? And, I gave him some iced tea, and because he didn't drink alcoholic beverages. And I left him in the living room, and I had gone to the bathroom. And when I came back out, my bathroom was right across from my bedroom. I lived in a little ranch home. I come out the bathroom, and he is sitting on my bed. And I'm like, standing in the door of the bathroom, because as soon as you open the bathroom door, you have a straight shot into my bedroom. So I'm like, what are you doing? And he says, I just thought, stumbling and bumbling, that we would be a little more comfortable in here. So I told him, I said, well, first of all, you are, quoting scriptures every other word. I said, you are reprimanding me on my life on what I should and should not do, because basically, like, he would be like, you should go to church, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And after a while, it kind of felt like you were not dating someone, a guy. This was like your big brother or your uncle or something. So it kind of surprised me that he just went from talking about that I was listening to the devil's music, the Temptations, Gladys Knight and all them, to now he's in my bedroom. So I go in and I sit on the bed and I'm like, look, what is your story? What's what is this? So he was like, when he was married before, he made mistakes and he was trying to live right, and that he was really not looking for like a relationship. He was looking for a wife. Like, he didn't want to get into anything that I guess eventually was not going to pan out to a marriage. And I told him, well, even with a man, you have to date a few people before, you end up married. And if you're not talking, how are you going to meet someone, or figure out if this is the person that you want to be with? Because I told him, I said, you 1 minute you're talking, and the next minute you're not, and the next minute you're back to quoting Bible scriptures and how you love God and all that stuff. I said, but I just didn't understand him, and that's why his story is a little odd. So we continue to talk. Again, he gets quiet, and I start puttering around my house again. Now, mind you, he's still in my room. So I come back in the room after I finish doing what I'm doing, and then I had a little stereo system in my room, and he said, does that work? And I said, yeah. So he turned it on, and of course in my room I had my little Gladys Knight and all that. So we sat there for a minute, and then, he started trying to kiss me again. So this time I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to see, where this goes and what he's about. So it was like he would be all passionate, and then he would just stop. And then he would be passionate, and then he would stop. So it's kind of hard to get a handle on that type of person. And after a while, it gets tiring trying to figure them out. So I was really, even though, I was allowing him to come over and, going out on dates, I was kind of bored with him. And I didn't know what he was about or what his story was really. So, we were kissing and everything, and all of a sudden it's like a switch flicked. And then he turned into this, I'm not going to say crazed sex maniac, because I wasn't that crazy, but how a person has been this certain way for 3 months. So you say, oh, he's a nice, quiet church boy. Then all of a sudden you got the bad boy in your room. And I was thinking, well, all righty then. All right, now this is something. I can work with this. So, nothing happened, but it was a different person. And then, he called me the next day, and he left that night. Nothing happened. He went home. And then he called me the next day, and he was asking me if I went to church. And I told him no, I did not. I had stayed home and got my Sunday dinner ready. So when my kids came back, they would have dinner. And I told him, I told you I don't go to church. And he spent like an hour lecturing me about, finding a church home and getting close to Christ and all of that. And I told him that I had my own special relation with God, and I didn't need him, my own special relationship with God, and I didn't need him to keep reminding me of what I needed to do. So he had kind of aggravated me. I got off the phone and I didn't talk to him for a few days, and I avoided his calls because he got on my nerves. So eventually he called me, right before the weekend because, he knew that my kids went with their dad on the weekend. He asked, can he come over? And I was like, okay, I'll let this son of a bitch come over. Again, preacher man, preaching. So this time when he comes over, from the moment he hit the door, he was a different person. He comes with some coolers. And I'm like, okay, well, I told him I really don't drink, but, this is some foo-foo stuff. It's not like we're drinking liquor. So, I put them in the refrigerator because, again, I'm not a big drinker. I really didn't drink any. And I told him that I would put them in the freezer so they could be cold. And then when I went back in the living room, I said, well, I thought you said you didn't drink. And he said, well, every once in a while I'll have a beer or something like that. So when I sat down, as soon as I sat down, he started, trying to kiss and, being touchy-feely and, was this different person. So I asked him what was going on. And he said that he liked me and, he was all for everything, but he was just trying to be a better person than what he was. Now, when he sat and explained what was actually going on, I kind of had like a better understanding of him. Basically, I think when he was in his marriage, they both had their problems and he was just trying to be a better person. But when you don't know his backstory and he's all hesitant and he's quoting the Bible and the next minute he's throwing you down, you are confused. So after I sat there and talked to him and he really, finally opened up and said, this is what's going on. It's not that I don't like you. It's not that I don't have feelings. I am a man, blah, blah, blah. You have a better understanding. So it kind of made the night a little lighter. So I, once again, put on my music. I asked him, does he want his little drink? Because, I really don't plan to drink anything because I hadn't planned to be, drinking anything anyway. He says yes. He drinks one of his, little coolers or whatever those things were. And then he really starts to get, a little out of hand to the point where it was funny. He was kind of chasing me around the house. I was like, okay, you need to calm down because it's like you done had some of the devil's liquid and now you are turning into a fool. So, it was playful. It wasn't scary or anything. It was playful. So I found him kind of funny. I was like, I like this person. He's silly and he's fun. He needs to act like this all the time instead of preaching the gospel every 5 minutes. And so then he sat back down. The next thing I know, he was preaching the gospel again, saying that I was tempting him. Now, remember, he's the one that's chasing me. So I'm like, oh, shit, what is going on with this man? And so while I'm sitting there and thinking about, okay, well, now we done switch. He's Dr. Jekyll. And so I said, okay, I'm right in the middle of thinking, okay, we're back to Preacherman. Let me regroup. And the next thing I know, he's trying to kiss again. So I'm like, what is going on with this fool? So this time I said, well, I'm going to let him just go. I'm not going to say anything because usually as soon as he try to act, a little sexy, I tease him. So this time I just let it go. I didn't say anything and I, just let it go because I'm trying to see what the brother working with, because by then he's piqued my interest. So I tell him, do you want your other drink? You know, trying to calm him down because he is really going at full speed at this point. So he says, no, he doesn't need anything to do what he's planning to do. And so I ask him exactly what is it that you're planning to do? Because I actually felt like with him, I had to kind of get a clear understanding because, like I said, I could tell that this boy, this man was, you know, into the church, torn, and he had some things going on. But at this time, I had kind of, after he explained everything that was going on with him, I started kind of liking his personality. So before, you know, anything happened, I said, what is it that, you know, you want to do? So he said, I would like to make love to you. So I was like, okay, well, come on with it. I didn't say that to him, but I just grabbed his hand and I said, come on to my bedroom. So at this point, I'm just going to stop and say, you know, as women, we're always maybe the submissive. We let the man take charge at this point in my life because I know I'm probably coming off as a hoochie. And I'm not going to shy away from the title. I was. I have been married 18 years. And to keep it real, I just wanted to have fun. I realized I'm free. There's a whole, you know, just gang of men, beautiful black men out here, and I wanted to be like a guy. I wanted to love them and leave them. I had, you know, been married 18 years. I had only dated one man in my adult life, and that was my husband. So at this point, I turned into like a man. My testosterone had popped out, and basically I was being safe about, you know, sexual things that I did. I did it when my kids weren't around. And I was safe about, you know, well, as safe as you could be in any world, because nowadays you could be safe and still run across a cycle. But I just want to let you guys know that going forward, this was a time in my life that I was exploring the male gender. I was fully engaged in having fun, having conquests, and I guess if that seems like I was a hoochie, I'm owning up to it. Remember I said that I had dusted off my whole card and I was using it. So I grabbed his hand, I took him in my bedroom and I rocked his world. I was thinking when he go to church next Sunday, he is going to have something to confess his sins for. Now, right after, true to his nature, he got up and said he's got to go because I had led him astray and that, you know, he needed to get out of here. So I was, you know, thinking, all right, brother, I'm basking in the afterglow. I let him out, take my little shower, changed my bed, and went on to sleep. The next day he called me and he says, look, you know, I'm looking for a godly woman. And I guess by that time he had realized that I was not. And I was making no bones about it. I said, you know, I was pretty sure we were going to get to this point because it's obvious that I am not the person that you're looking for. I explained to him once again my position. You know, I had been married. I'm having fun. And I was true to my testosterone that I had newly found. I said, look, and remember, I'm the man now. I said, I'm just looking for a good time, some sex, and some fun. And I just kept it that real. I said, you have 4 children, the youngest being 8 months. I said, I am not ready to take on that. I have a 19-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, and I do not want to start all over again. I told him I wished him luck, that one day he would make someone, just not me, a very good husband. We parted, you know, I guess amicably, because I was not going to continue to be, you know, labeled by him as some one-time woman trying to lead him astray. Now, he can label me that because I was acting like a fool. You know, this was the time when I was doing my little thing. But if that's not what he wanted, then he didn't need to be in my life. So after that, I continued to be friends with him. I just, every once in a blue moon, we would go out on a date. If it's something that, I guess was going on big in his life, because I remember one time I went to his Christmas party with him. Another time I went to Cedar Point with him and his children and my children. And eventually we kind of drifted apart. I met someone else. And I guess, once his kids got here and he kind of settled into being that full-time dad with, the day-to-day things that you have to do when you got a doggone football field of kids, because he needed a baby's, he was looking for someone to be a mother to his children. And I'm just being serious now. I just wasn't cut out for that. So that is the end of this one. And at this point, again, I know you guys are probably thinking that, oh my gosh, she was from man to man. And you know what? I'm owning up to my shit. I'm standing in my truth. And that's why I did these, because a lot of times as women, as I mentioned earlier, we don't take what we want out of life. We are so busy raising children, working jobs, being wives or girlfriends, and just being Mother Earth. But sometimes, every once in a while, we have those moments when we sit and we think, what if? What if I didn't have these kids? Not that you don't love your children, but what if I didn't have all this responsibility on my shoulders? What if I can do this? So this time in my life, I was living out those what ifs. Before this, prior to this, I was running, ripping and running. I was a wife. I was doing this. I was doing that. And not that I wasn't still doing that when my kids were home. Because when my kids were there, I was Mother Earth. I was taking them to their games, any activities. I was going to listen to my daughter play her clarinet badly, horribly at school. She was not that great, but I had to pretend that she was. I was going to everything my son was in, but on the times when they were with their dad, and luckily I had an ex that loved his children, and he came and got them as much as he could, which was quite often. So it left me with a lot of time on my hands, there by myself. And in the beginning, I didn't really date. I was just sitting there, washing clothes and cleaning the house up. And then one day I said, you know what? The dad is dating. My ex is dating. He's pulling up in my driveway with his woman in the car, his new woman. And then I'm sitting here, not doing anything but being a mother. I started saying, you know what? It's time for me to step out. So that's why I have these stories. Because during that time, when I just let myself go after so many years, I was like how they say preachers' kids are, or Catholic school girls, after being so restrained because I got married early, had babies early. So I spent all of my 20s being a mother and a wife, all of my 30s being a mother and a wife, into my late 30s, and then here I am over 40, and I have this time on my hand. So that's why you guys are getting all of these stories. It is just almost like a video diary of things that now, as I sit back, that I'm a little older and I think of things that I've done, it just kind of makes me chuckle, because I definitely am not that person. And then in this video, there's a few times where I am a little hesitant to talk. It's because I have been sick, and I have a 29-year-old son that has a key to his mom's home, and he comes over and check on me. So a couple of times when I was talking, he was in the house, and I really didn't want him to hear me. And I don't know why, but I gave them my, they know that I have this YouTube channel, and I guess they're going to learn some things about their mom because they are subscribed to me. And I just told them that, now that they're adults, these are the things that I was thinking about when I was trying to raise them. You know, that basically mom needed love too. So that is the end of my story. I think I've rambled on enough today, but I just wanted to give you guys a little insight into who I was at that time. All of this occurred between the ages, I was about 40 to 45, maybe 46. And then we had that revelation when my son came up to me and told me what he felt about me. So I'm going to get out of here. As always, if you have any questions, comments, I am open to anything. If you have any criticisms, put them on down there, because I know y'all probably sitting there saying, whoo, Jesus, she was having men and running here and throwing people down. Yes, I was, and I am proud of it. Because, see, I'm not going to be one of those old ladies sitting back in the rocking chair thinking about what I should have done. I was younger, and I was just having fun. So you guys take care, and thanks for taking your time and listening to my little, I guess, world, and I appreciate it. Bye-bye now.